Okay, so we had just the one for you here on your Canvas notes. Let's go ahead and do it together. We need to find the greatest common factor between 14m and 35n. So between the 14 and the 35, what's the largest number that multiplies into both? 7. M and n, greatest common factor? There isn't one. Nothing that I can multiply m by to get n. There's nothing I can multiply n by to get m. Greatest common factor here is 7. So let's factor it out. Factor it out. And again, in quotes, factor it out. Shoop. And then to factor it out, I divide both of those terms by 7. So this is 7 times 2m plus 5y. And again, I can check my work to make sure that that's correct, right? Because that's my factored version. If I distribute the 7, I get 14m plus 35y. And that, or excuse me, why am I writing y? This is an n. That's an n. That's an n. It's hard having bad handwriting. All right. Anyway, it checks out. It's the same problem. Okay, moving on to our last thing here. Now, what we're going to do now is combine the zero product and factoring, because we are going to do both of these things on this example to solve this equation. Notice how we've got this thing right here that equals 0. So the first thing we want to do is factor out the greatest common factor. So let's find out what the greatest common factor is. Between 2 and 8, greatest common factor is 2. It's the biggest number that multiplies into both. Between x squared and x, x. So I'm going to factor out the 2x, right? Notice that I'm putting it outside and then I'm starting my parentheses. And then to do that, I need to take whatever's in the parentheses and divide it by 2x. So I get 2x times 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared divided by x is x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. X divided by x is 1. So there we have 2x times x plus 4 equals 0. So this is the part right here that is factoring. Now let's talk about combining the zero product. Let's do the zero product now. Remember, zero product was if this or this is 0, then the whole thing is 0. So what makes 2x equal 0? And what makes x plus 4 equal 0? Well, dividing by 2 tells us that this is 0. Subtracting 4 on this one tells us it's negative 4. So what two numbers work? 0 and negative 4. And again, I can check myself. If I plug in 0 here, 2 times 0 makes 0. 0 times 4 makes 0, so it's 0. Negative 4. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Negative 8 times 0 is 0. So these are the two numbers that work. Let's do one more example. Okay, let's do another example. 6n squared minus 15n equals 0. The first thing we need to do is factor. And again, we have to factor this because notice we have two terms here, an n squared term and an n term. We can't get the n by itself because we can't combine these. There's no way to get the n by itself on one side. That's why we have to factor it. So we're going to find the greatest common factor. So the biggest number that multiplies into 6 and 15 is 3. And the biggest variable here that multiplies between n squared and n is n. So that's what I'm going to factor out, 3n. And then I'm going to divide everything in here by 3n. Oops. And when I do that, 6 divided by 3 is 2. N squared divided by n is n. minus 15 divided by 3 is 5. N divided by n is 1. So I'm left with this as my factored form. Again, checking my work. 2n minus 5. If I distribute that, I get 6n squared, n squared, minus 15n. And look at that. That's the same as my problem. So it works out. So there's my factoring, right? And now let's solve. So zero product. This times this. If either one is 0, then the whole expression is 0. So what value for n makes this one 0? 0. What value makes this one 0? Well, I got to add 5 to both sides. That's 2n equals 5. And then I got to divide by 2. I get n equals 5 halves. So my solutions are 0 and 5 halves. And I've got a few practice ones for you on this one. So go ahead and go back to Canvas and do those. And then we will do them together in your last video.